I'm going to do a reading today for the new moon. We have a new moon in Taurus today, and it's also Earth Day. So that's a lot of earthy energy happening at once, which is beautiful. Great day to go outside, although I can't say that I did because it's snowing. But I always like on new moons to initiate new things. Hi, Holly. Hi, Bonnie. So I was just saying that, yeah, we have a new moon in Taurus today, and it's also Earth Day. So we have lots of earth energy going on today, which is nice. And on new moons, I always like to initiate new things, set intentions for the next month, the next couple weeks. And I happen to have just received this deck in the mail, the Wanderer's Tarot deck, brand new. I've never used it before, so I thought how perfect to do a reading for you guys about this new moon while seeding the energy of this new deck. So I'm going to do a 5-card spread today, and it's going to be focused on the energy of this moon in Taurus and kind of just help this group that shows up today or whoever kind of tunes in to listen to this in the next 24 hours while it's up, while we're still in the energy of this Taurus moon. Yeah, to just kind of give us some guidance on how to harness the energy of this moon. Because whenever it's always a good time to set intentions and to ground and all of that. But I do think that when we have a new moon, the energy is kind of enhanced and we kind of have a little bit of cosmic help. So it's just a particularly good moment to call things in. Whereas full moons I like for letting go, for taking stock, for seeing kind of how things came through from the intentions we set 2 weeks before with the new moon. So I'm giving these cards a good shuffle since they're brand new. They came in order, so, been shuffling them like crazy before starting this. Hi, Bertie. I miss you so much. So for those that just joined, I'm just about to pull a few cards about this new moon in Taurus to help us kind of navigate the next 2 weeks in the best possible way. So those cards are there. I pulled 2 cards from another deck that I have called the Aquarian Tarot, just to kind of anchor us in the theme of this reading. So I pulled the moon, since it is a new moon, and I pulled the Hierophant, which is the card that is represented by the energy of Taurus. So we have a new moon in Taurus. So these 2 are kind of anchoring us. That's kind of the theme of what we're going to be talking about today. Birdie, I hope I'll be reunited with you sooner than later, yeah? Hopefully in the next month or 2. I miss dancing with you. All right, so I think these are pretty well shuffled. And I'm gonna cut them into 3 little piles and then we're going to start this reading. So let's find out what the cards have for us in terms of the energies of this new moon and how to navigate. So I'm cutting with my left hand to the left, my right hand to the right, and I'll take that center pile and put it on top. And so I'll flip you guys around in a second to show you how these cards are all coming out. But the first card represents the message of this moon. The second card represents kind of what has to fall away, what we have to let go of, kind of like our fears. The third card represents our hopes and desires, or what we're calling in. The fourth card represents, and these cards are so different than other decks. They're actually really beautiful and sort of simpler, but I'm realizing these are not super well shuffled, but I think I'm going to do a little bit of a different approach here, because since they're so new, the shuffling, they're just coming out all in order. So I'm going to spread them out in front of me. This is another way that I sometimes do to pick cards. I spread them out and then I kind of let my hand guide me to which card needs to be picked. So I think since these cards need a little bit more shuffling to get really mixed up, that's going to be the move here. But we'll do the same spread. So first card, message of the moon. Second card, our fears, what needs to be let go of. Third card is what we're calling in or what we hope or desire. Fourth card is the path forward for these next 2 weeks. And the fifth card is kind of the summary or the outcome card. All right, so this will be visible to you in a moment. I hope you're staying safe too, wherever you all are. I'm in Vermont, but my heart's in Sumba. Hopefully be back there soon. Okay, this is more diverse. This is better. So I'll flip you guys around. So for the message of this moon, we have the Wanderer of Stones. For the fears or what we're letting go, we have the Prophet of Stones. For what we're calling in, we have the Fool. Very interesting energy to come up for us right now, given the state of the world. For the path forward, we have the 10 of Moons, which is equivalent to the 10 of Cups, for those of you who know the tarot. And for the outcome card, we have the 8 of Swords, which is a card that came up for me recently. So let me flip you guys all back around. And we're going to get started with this reading in a moment. Just grabbing something over here to the side. So these cards are really interesting because they're made by this witch called Casey Zavala of the Wanderer's Tarot. And she's sort of changed the names in a really beautiful way. So, for example, we have, as the message from the room, the Wanderer of Stones. And so the Wanderer, for those of you who understand the tarot, corresponds to the pages or the princesses, depending on which decks you have. So it's a court card. And we also have one other court card, which is the Prophet of Stones. And Prophet is equivalent to the queens in the other deck. So I just wanted to grab her little booklet to check that. And stones are pentacles, so that's the earth element. So this is a card that's been coming up a lot for me in readings lately with clients. So the message of this moon has to do with new beginnings, and it's to do with the material plane, with what we value. And like I said in the beginning, this new moon is in the sign of Taurus, which is one of the earth signs. So it's got equivalency to this. It makes sense that the message that's coming through to us is a message of the earth. So the Wanderer of Stones, I mean, even this idea of the Wanderer, I really like that she calls it the Wanderer instead of the Page or the Princess, because it's the youngest of the court cards. It's the riskiest. It's the one that is willing to try new things, that has a beginner's mind. And since it is in the suit of earth, of pentacles or of stones, as she has it in her deck, I find that so beautiful. It has to do with the material things in our life. I mean, it's Earth Day. I love that there's an Earth card that came up first for the message from this moon. So what we're being asked to think about now with this new moon is what needs kind of a fresh beginning in our life. Like, it's a perfect card for setting intentions. This energy of the Wanderer of Stones is very much related to starting new things in our life that have sort of a concrete physicality to them, whether it's doing a new thing, whether it's starting a new enterprise work-wise. This is also the card of the entrepreneur and kind of like the seeker in terms of the earthly realm. So that's the message from the moon, and maybe we'll come back to that in a bit, but I'll tell you now a little bit about the next one, which is again another card in the suit of stones, in the suit of earth, or pentacles or coins, depending on what kind of decks you normally follow at home. So the Prophet of Stones is equivalency to the Queen of Stones. And so the energy of that card is, it's related to the sign of Capricorn. It's also it's the strongest of the queens, the strongest of the prophets. She's very much like this earth mama energy. And it's coming up in the place of sort of where our fears are. And I find that really interesting because I do think that this entire quarantine, this entire experience of COVID keeping us at home and the air starting to clean and the earth kind of getting a break from all us humans, that's really interesting because it's almost like it's bringing that up, that our fears are related to it's being shown to us in a very stark way that the impact that we've had on the world in the way that we were living. Now that we're all home and it's getting a chance to just be itself, I'm looking out my window at the earth, at the trees, at the snow. Now that the earth that we've had a chance to sort of see what happens when we are taken out of the equation, it's kind of become very clear sort of the harm that we have done. So I think that's something that is very much necessary to reflect upon at this new moon. Like, what new beginning, thinking of that first sort of message, can we initiate in our lives in order to be kinder to the earth, in order to make less of an impact moving forward? When we come out of this, pandemic global experience that we're in, what are we going to let go of that isn't honoring this earth mama goddess that we all live on, that isn't honoring the prophet of stones, who is the earth mama, who is a goddess of the earth? So that to me makes a lot of sense. I think that's a great thing for us to think about now while we're at home. Like, we're not going to be really out there in the world yet for a little while probably. So that's an interesting card to come up in terms of what we're fearing. It's not that we fear the earth, but it's like we are given a chance to reflect on how we are impacting it. And it's worth it to fear a negative impact on the earth. Like, this is our home. And so I think this moon, this exploration, this new beginning that's being asked of us with this new moon in Taurus is very much to reflect on the impact we have and the new initiations we can take in order to have a smaller impact or to make a positive difference instead of a negative one. So in contrast to that, for what we are calling in, or for sort of our hopes and dreams, we have the card of the Fool. This is the very first card of the major arcana. When we speak about the tarot, we speak about being on the fool's journey. We can also think of that as the hero's journey or the heroine's journey. But basically, this card initiates everything. It's like, this is us when we come to Earth. This is us when we start any new thing, when we initiate anything for the first time. In a way, we are recommencing our fool's journey. We start it when we first come into the world, but we restart it over and over again throughout life. Like, we often find ourselves in this place of needing to jump off a cliff and do things completely differently. So that to me lines up really interestingly with what we've been talking about so far, about initiating something new, about respect for the earth when we come out of our quarantine, and this hope and this dream that, like, where it's not going to go back to how it was before, but it's going to be a leap into something new. So the Fool really is that energy of that jumping off of the cliff, that sort of leap into the great unknown, and that trust that the universe is going to catch you, is very much within the energy of this card. So it's like, this is uncomfortable right now, but at the same time, perhaps we are yearning for things to be done differently, and we can tap into that Fool energy, that kind of, what's that risky, we were talking about taking risks with the Wanderer of Stones as well, the Page of Pentacles, if you think of it that way, that idea of taking risk, there's almost like a yearning for it and saying, okay, like, how can we be brave? There's a hope and a desire to be brave as we move forward. That's being brought forward by the energy of this moon cycle that we're in right now. Beautiful. And if anyone has questions, feel free to just shout it out and and let me know. So next we have the card which represents the path forward. It's the Ten of Moons, which corresponds to the Ten of Cups in other decks. I love that she changed it to moons. It's very feminine, beautiful, and very apt for what we're talking about today, which is the energy of the new moon in Taurus. The Ten of Moons is a great card. I'm always happy, and everyone is always happy when they see this card, because it's basically the card of, like, complete and utter abundance and fulfillment. And so that's very heartening to see, because I know that many of us feel very much in a moment of lack and loss and pain and death, and there's a sort of a lot of heaviness going on, and the Ten of Cups is a card of complete lightness and just joy and fulfillment. And so that's really nice to see. That's the path forward. That's almost like the card saying, okay, new beginning is necessary. It's time for us to set intentions to bring forth this sort of new earth that we all want to create for ourselves coming out of this experience. And it's saying that the path forward, is a path of fulfillment and joy. Like, taking a better care of our planet, taking better care of each other, being better sort of earthlings to one another, that's the path towards abundance and joy. This card represents the path forward. That's where it's shown up in the spread. It's very much like in other decks that have sort of more pictorial, more sort of cinematic renderings of the meaning of this card, like you see two lovers under a rainbow just like celebrating joy. I mean, that's very much, I think, what we're all looking forward to, is being connected to each other again, being in community again, but knowing that the path forward, like optimism for the state of our planet, basically, like doing things that are in the favor of our Mama Earth, of our Pachamama, is going to be the right path forward for us. And then the final card, which kind of summarizes all of this, is a very sort of interesting, contrasting energy to this 10 of Moons, this 10 of Cups that we just spoke about. It's the 8 of Swords, the 8 of Swords. So that's that card there. The swords have to do with the air element. So whereas Cups or Moons has all to do with emotion, and stones have all to do with earth, the knives have to do with air. And air has to do with intellect, the way we think. And with the 8 of Swords, there's a feeling of being stuck. There's a feeling of sort of constriction, of not knowing how to move forward. And I think that's our challenge right now. Like we are in an 8 of Cups moment as well. You know, this is very much a card of quarantine. But what comes to mind with this is something I heard with someone I worked with back when I worked in the design world in New York. Creativity needs boundaries, this person said to me. You can be more creative when you have fewer options. It's like when you go to your kitchen and you kind of run out of ingredients and you have to just make do with what you have there. That's sometimes when you create the most interesting dish, you know? Like artists needs boundaries. Like if you give someone a Chinese food menu with 1,000 things, it's almost harder to pick than if you have something well curated to pick from. So that's the energy of this card. It's this energy of working with the boundaries that we have. And we have sort of innate boundaries right now that we can't really control. Like there's a larger global situation, and so we're kind of constricted. And so maybe we can get more creative, more sort of bright and more ingenious in the solutions that we come up with. These solutions, these intentions that we make for how we want to move forward, for how we want to treat our Mama Earth moving forward, for this new vision for the Earth, this wild leap forward into a great unknown. We have the restrictions and the sort of imposed discipline right now of just having to be with ourselves and sit with ourselves to maybe come up with the most creative and ingenious solutions. Because the swords, they're air. That is the element of genius, of intellect, of thinking, of ideas. And that's what's needed now. I don't think going back to how things were is really an option. Like we don't want to be in this situation ever again. And we have this very concrete evidence outside of how good it's been for the planet for everything to slow down. So I think the invitation of this moon is really and maybe I'm influenced by the fact that it's Earth Day and all these Earth cards are coming up for us in this reading today. The first one and the second one, the Wanderer of Stones, also known as the Page of Pentacles, and the Prophet of Stones, also known as the Queen of Pentacles. I think that it's really a time to think about that. And on a personal level, drawing this into ourselves, since we all have personal things going on too, it's thinking about sort of how you physically are in the world. Like whereas swords is in the world of ideas, moons or cups is in the world of emotions, fire is creativity, earth is like actually being here on earth. It's things of value. Like that's very much what the energy of Taurus is about. Taurus is very grounded. Taurus wants to know how to create a life of beauty and value. And another thing that one of my dearest teachers, Bill Atride, who I've been working with for 12 years, he's an astrologer in New York, he's always said to me that the key to life is that it's meant to be beautiful. And that's very much an earth element concept. This concept that we are here embodied on earth as human beings, we are earthlings. And the key to this human experience is beauty. We see that in nature every day. It shows us its beauty if we stop and look at it. So I think the other invitation of this moon, we talked more kind of on a global level. Now we're zooming in more on a personal level, is make your moon intentions today. Make your intentions for this next phase to really question, like, am I leading a beautiful life? Is it beautiful to me? Is there anything in this life that I've set up for myself that I'm doing for someone else's idea of beauty? What is my idea of beauty? Is an initiation, is a new way of being in the world needed in order for me to align with my own concept of beauty? You know what I mean? And the Prophet of Stones, the Queen of Pentacles, she's very much about that beautiful life too. Like that's what she's all about. There she is. She's like creating art from things she found in nature. You see it in the imagery of the deck. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that was inspiring. If anyone's doing moon rituals tonight, I hope this gave you a little jumping off point to consider what you might journal about, what you might intend. And I'll be here again next week. I've been enjoying doing these readings every week. If you do want a one-on-one reading, you can book through my link in bio. I'm also offering some discounted readings for people that are struggling with the pandemic. I know that's affecting a lot of us financially, so just direct message me if you're interested in that and we'll work it out. I hope you enjoyed. I'll be doing more of these. I'll post this up on YouTube for people who want to watch it later, and this will be up for the next 24 hours. So if you have a friend who would enjoy this, who would benefit from this, please forward it to them. I'll post the spread on my stories too in case anybody wants to relook at the cards. I'm sending a big hug to all of you. Lots of love, new moon blessings. Do something to connect with the earth today. And remember that your body is part of the earth. So even if you can't go outside, just connect with yourself. All right, you guys. For those of you just joining in, this will be up on my stories for the next 24 hours. So you didn't miss a thing. You can still watch it. Have a beautiful moon. Have a beautiful new moon and enjoy. Lots of love. Bye, everyone.